Hey everybody, my name is Russ, and I am a lifelong He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fan based in Phoenix, Arizona. The wall of He-Man art you see behind me is my living room. I live and breathe this stuff. He-Man and the Monkeys are the two pillars of my nerddom. And since He-Man has been on the lips and minds of so many pop culture commentators in the last several weeks and months, I thought I should chime into the conversation to the potential dozens of people that might watch this video on YouTube. This is kind of a whim. I haven't scripted anything, but I certainly have some solid thoughts that I want to articulate because the conversation is happening at a fast and furious pace. And it's interesting to see that conversation transpire between the creators of this new He-Man content, Masters of the Universe Revelation, and presumed fans. The conversation is happening in real time and literally between creator and consumer. So, if anything, it's interesting that we live in a time where that can happen outright. I don't think, as fans of the original show, we could have even conceived that we might be able to like converse with Lou Scheimer or Paul Dini as he was writing a He-Man script, or J. Michael Straczynski, or any of those guys. So it's crazy now to think that Kevin Smith is responding in actual real time to commentators and create online creatives as they discuss He-Man. Here's the deal, and I'm just going to cut to the chase. I liked Masters of the Universe Revelation. Did I? I don't think I loved it, but I really, really liked it, and I liked it for all of the reasons I'm being told I shouldn't. I liked that He-Man was sidelined so that other characters got a little bit of spotlight. Quite frankly, Teela has the most compelling backstory of any character in Masters of the Universe, and that's always been the case. From the mini comic, I think it was called A Tale of Two Teelas, maybe, to the Filmation shows that teased us with her origin as the daughter of the sorceress. Teela's backstory has had the most mystery and intrigue for as long as I can remember any character in fiction that I've enjoyed having such a story. You know, Prince Adam's origin is pretty straightforward. He's the child of Eternian King Randor and Earthen Queen Marlena, and he is the heir of the Sword of Power, and he becomes He-Man, and now in later iterations we know that this is part of a legacy of He-Men. Very cool, and I love him. I love Prince Adam and He-Man. But man, if you just look at some of these posters, if you just explore the history of Mattel's catalog, there are so many characters in Masters of the Universe that to shelve He-Man and give a few of those other characters a bit of the spotlight, significantly Teela, because of that rich backstory, man, I have been waiting for this my whole life. Roboto, Mossman, Orko, to see their personalities shine in a way that I think is true to the original iteration of these characters, and yet now with a depth that's apparently been demanded from He-Man fans that work in the industry, that work at Netflix, telling Kevin Smith and that creative team, give us the Shakespearean treatment we remember of these characters. I mean, we've really glorified those simplistic fables from Filmation. We've really built upon that mythology in our own minds as fans. And so to see that take place now in Revelation, to me, is a revelation. Is He-Man emasculated by being sidelined? Is there a feminist agenda by pushing Teela to the forefront? Maybe. Maybe. But quite frankly, every major superhero character experiences this post-apocalyptic or post-mortem exploration of their impact in their world. Superman died in the early 90s, and fans hated it then, but now it's one of the best, if not the definitive Superman story that all cinematic iterations of Superman revisit in some way or another. Batman. Bruce Wayne himself took a back seat during, remember Nightfall? And then No Man's Land. Batman was absent for the beginning of that story. Again, controversial moves at the time, but when we look back, the revelation, no pun intended, that was good for the characters because we saw how the world was impacted by their absence, and then their return was triumphant. It happens with Captain America, Spider-Man. Every significant superhero has a story in their canon where they're absent, and you see how the other characters in their world step forward to fill those big shoes. And so for that now to happen to He-Man, to me, is a maturation. Is that the word? Maturation? It's a mature step forward for the franchise, considering that we're older fans now and deserving of a story with some sophistication. Again, with Teela being the character to fill those shoes most significantly, is there an agenda there? Is that what Hollywood's been doing all this time? Maybe, but these two arguments can be mutually exclusive. It could be a great show, and it could be fulfilling parts of the Masters of the Universe lore that have yet to be fulfilled. But it could also be a part of that Hollywood agenda. So I don't think it's a one or the other thing. I don't think that you lose the integrity of one because of the argument of the other. I just don't think that's the case. And fortunately, despite all of the YouTube chatter about Revelation, when I watched it Thursday night into Friday morning, when I refreshed Netflix at 12:01 a.m. here Mountain Standard Time, and there it was, I was able to compartmentalize that stuff that had been buzzing on the internet and just absorb the show as the kid that was still asking questions about whether or not Teela would ever discover that the sorceress was her mom. Here's an angle that maybe a lot of fans haven't explored. I've often wondered what happened on Eternia when He-Man and Skeletor went into space in the New Adventures. I know Teela made a cameo in that show, but let's unpack that a little bit more. What would Eternia be like if He-Man and Skeletor disappeared practically inexplicably, and now you're in an Eternia where the two most powerful men are gone? What happens to the royalty? What happens to the guard? What happens to Skeletor's henchmen? And so, even though that wasn't the context of this show, it kind of fulfilled some of those questions that I've been asking myself, that fan fiction that I've been writing in my head ever since I was a kid. And so I was able to compartmentalize the controversy, the Hollywood agenda, the emasculation, all of those theories, and just enjoy this as something I've been waiting for this whole time. But I'll tell you what, here's where Kevin Smith has been lying to us as fans. Andra, this new character that appeared in a panel on a page in a comic 30 years ago, I don't know. She's not the avatar for the audience. Maybe they would like us to think that she is, or maybe she was designed to be, but a young black woman on Eternia acting as Teela's sidekick, girlfriend, I can't put myself in her shoes. Here's where I find myself after those 5 episodes. Here's who I relate to the most, and it's Orko. Orko is the avatar for this audience, the 40-year-old white guy that's loved He-Man his whole life. Maybe Andra's the new audience that they're hoping to attract with this show, with that feminist agenda that they're asserting, okay? But Orko is me. Orko is us. And here's why. Simple things. When Teela's leaving after the revelation has taken place, he turns and begs her, don't go. Join us here still, stay with us, and let's get through this together. In other words, don't go off on this potentially agenda-riddled adventure you're about to have on your own. Stay with the team, like the old show used to be, and let's figure it out together in He-Man's absence. That's our plea, okay? And then when he's sickly in Man-at-Arms' hut, and he just begs, take me on one more adventure. Take me, I won't mess this up, please. That's us. Begging this new protagonist to let us join her. Let us join this adventure in the spirit of the old one, so that we have something to cling on to, that precious memory. Because what's left, he says, good memories and good friends. That's Masters of the Universe to so many of us. I look at these characters like friends. Maybe it's sad to say that as an adult, but good storytelling does such a thing, right? You relate to the characters. You understand them, their motivations. That's where so many of these commentators are losing it, in my opinion, in their presumed rage at Kevin Smith, calling him all sorts of names under the sun. Names, by the way, that He-Man would frown upon. You're going to stand up for the image of He-Man and what he represented to you as a kid, and you're going to say, how dare you take him off the stage? But you're going to talk in such a way that He-Man would have chastised in one of those morality lessons at the end of a Filmation episode. That's what's despicable to me. You could have a sophisticated, sarcastic argument about what's going on. You could be humorous, but to wish death upon Kevin Smith, to call him some of these profane names, it's the very thing that I hope Masters of the Universe doesn't stray into. One of my biggest problems with the show is hearing these characters say things like, what the hell? I don't have kids, but if I did and they were sitting next to me, that would give me a little bit of a cringe, you know? Again, no pun intended. Give me a little bit of a cringer factor in hearing this language that's now supposed to be targeting me as an older fan. You know, call me a purist in that regard. I certainly wouldn't censor anybody that uses such language, but I wish there was a way around it that still made the script mature for an adult audience, and at the same time, undeniably kid-friendly. Well, and inexplicably, too, because if you could attract an adult audience with a show meant for kids, that's strange. And it's certainly been happening in contemporary culture. There are shows for kids that have roped in an adult audience, maybe like the new iteration of My Little Pony, for example. Adventure Time, maybe. I'm not as familiar, but I was going to say Rick and Morty, but I think that's meant for adults, right? I'm not sure, but it's as inexplicable as it would be undeniable if you can avoid even a tame phrase like "what the hell" and just keep it undeniably kid-friendly, so you give nobody room for argument. And that's where Kevin Smith failed. He gave critics that were in the wings and ready to pounce room to call him a liar. And I don't know. He's now saying that sacrifice, a Christ-like sacrifice for the universe, isn't sidelining, but a natural next step for a hero like He-Man. I agree with him, by the way. What's left for He-Man to do? He-Man is a stalwart for good. He stands up for what's right and righteous on Eternia. He's going to fight Skeletor to the end. What did you want to see He-Man do in this show that he hasn't done already in all the iterations we've seen before? The mini-comics from Mattel, Filmation's He-Man, the wonderful Mike Young series from the early 2000s, even the comics from Image and DC that have come out in recent years. What did you want to see He-Man do in this series that he hasn't done before? And I dare say to fans that the only thing left for a great, iconic character like He-Man, the only thing left for him to do is die for his cause, like Superman has done, like probably many other superheroes in comics that have died and come back, like they've all done. He-Man is now at that level of superheroic storytelling that he has perhaps never been at before. And we actually have Kevin Smith to thank for that. Where I think he fell short is giving his critics room to call him a liar by using words like sidelining, by ignoring that Teela would be the main character. Here's what Kevin Smith should have been saying this whole time, and this is kind of where I'll end, is he should have been saying, I hear there's a lot of criticism out there about He-Man maybe not being at center stage. Real fans of Masters of the Universe know that there is a plethora, a cornucopia, several characters that through the years maybe didn't get the spotlight, or that have unanswered questions about their past, that He-Man being at the forefront has prevented us from telling, because He-Man is such a compelling and interesting character. Watch Revelation and see how there are so many other great characters in this Masters of the Universe lore, and you too will enjoy this next step in the franchise. Maybe you won't get as much He-Man as you would have wanted, but you're going to get all those other characters. All those other action figures on your shelf, you're going to see them play, in some cases for the first time. And it's going to blow you away. And when you least suspect it, maybe He-Man will come back. If Kevin Smith had said that, we wouldn't have been able to call him a liar this whole time. We wouldn't have accusations of emasculation, that's an agenda in this show. It would have simply been a general statement of, we're flipping through the catalog here, and Mattel's telling us to play with all the toys. And you played with He-Man a lot. And we're going to blow the dust off of Mossman for you. We're going to show you what Roboto's really capable of. We're going to add a dimension to Evil Lyn you never imagined existed. And we're going to tell a story of such scope that it doesn't need He-Man on Eternia until perhaps that moment when you least suspect it. Boom! Then, at the end of episode 5, we would have thought, oh, here's the return of He-Man that Kevin Smith was alluding to. But it would have been Skeletor's triumph, and then the back half would have had that anticipation. Is He-Man going to come back when we least expect? Is something going to happen here? Or that would have been, because remember now, in the 3-act structure of a story, we're in the middle of the second act, right? This is the middle of the show. We're in the middle of the second act when things are supposed to be the most bleak, when the hero is supposed to be at his lowest point. He-Man's already been dead and come back to life. Prince Adam's back on Eternia in the flesh. And he's been promised, he's been essentially assured that he cannot return to his reward. So he has sacrificed the reward of Preternia and standing among the League of He-Men, so to speak. So that's gone. That's not an option. Knowing that now, he is standing on Eternia, holding aloft the sword, and he's been stabbed, potentially mortally. If he dies, where's his soul going to go? This is the lowest place for our hero. And this is where we're supposed to be in the middle of the story. The third act complicates the problem a little bit more before ultimately solving it. Now the controversy stands. Who's going to solve it? If Teela's the one that picks up that sword and becomes She-Man, as so many fear, will I, as a fan of He-Man all this time, of Masters of the Universe, as a proponent for the argument that Revelation may be the story we've actually all been waiting for, will I be disappointed? Maybe, because I think her rightful place is on the throne of Grayskull as the successor to the Sorceress, and truly the most powerful person on Eternia, not the one wielding the power of Grayskull, but the one in charge of protecting it. That's always been Teela's place. Putting her in a position of power and authority is not new, is not a new agenda. It's been a part of her character arc from the very beginning. So to see her robbed of that, and instead given the sword to become the wielder of the power of He, yeah, that will disappoint me in so much that there's been a subplot brewing for the last 40 years that will have then been redirected without foreshadow or without pretense. Will that be fulfilling a Hollywood agenda? Let's talk about it then, shall we? But in the meantime, we've been presented a story where all these other characters had a small chance to shine. And man, I'll tell you what, for the next 5 episodes, I don't want to see He-Man if that means a little bit of Cyclone, a little bit of Extendor, and I'm just looking at my shelf, a little Manny Faces, a little Mechanic, dude, a little Rio Blast? Where's Rio Blast? You know what I'm saying? So if that means a little less He-Man in favor of some of those characters that I've loved my whole life, okay, I'm cool with that. And then He-Man returns at the end to save the day? Well, shoot, that sounds a little bit like the death of Superman to me, where we were introduced to a brand new Superboy, a brand new Steel, the Eradicator. You know, characters now that are enriched and entrenched in the Superman mythos. Man, that's what this story did for Roboto to me. That's what it did even for Mossman for me. His very quick appearance in the first episode, and then the way he contributed to the 5th. Mossman's cool to me, man. Mossman's cool now, dude. And the fact that I could see myself in the goofiest of all, the Jester Orko, in both his desire to be on this adventure and ultimately his sacrifice, What does that sacrifice mean in my analogy for that's us? Orko's the avatar of us? Well, I'll tell you what, if you're giving up on Masters of the Universe now, yeah, then you're dead there at the doorway. You gave into your fear, Scareglow, and you're throwing it away. But I'm going to hold on and see what happens. And I presume that Orko will have a return in the end, just as we saw Mossman actually come back. I think we will hear from Orko again, because he's been so brilliantly cast, by the way. The actor, Griffin, Newman's nailing it. He's nailing it. So you're not going to squander that potential. So when Orko returns and wherever he stands, I think is where we will be as well as fans. If he stays dead, maybe that's where they wanted us. Then I'll be disappointed. But if he's back there in the throne room with Randor and Marlena, or maybe now King Adam with Tila as the sorceress at Grayskull, I'm cool with that. That's what I've been waiting for. So yes, Kevin Smith lied, but not about what we've been saying this whole time. He actually lied about who we are in the story. And who I am is somebody holding on with some hope, and that has so far been entertained by Masters of the Universe Revelation. All right? Comment, like, subscribe, smash like button. Thanks, everybody. Bye.